Well, we are back finally. So, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whenever it is you're listening to us. It's been a while, but schedules have clashed. We've been on a trip. We've been busy little boys, haven't we? Really? But yeah, we are back. It's Charbuck's chat. We'll call it the reboot, I think. And I am joined once again by Shah and Yasir. And normally we'd start by saying a British white man, a British Indian, a British Pakistani walked into a chai shop and got talking. But this week, I'm going to say a British white man, a British Indian, and a British Pakistani went to Pakistan. Now, it's something we've talked about for quite a while. And as I've said to a lot of people that have asked about the trip, it's always been one of those things that we've talked about when we were playing golf. That's how it originated. That's how this originated, wasn't it? So us three met in a business networking event, and then we ended up starting to play golf together. And while we were playing golf, Shaz once asked us if we'd like to play golf in Pakistan because he has a house over there. And it's one of those things that I think that we've always said, yeah, we'll do it. That we never really thought between us had ever come off. But as of November last year. Was it November? It was, wasn't it? No, middle of November last year, we booked the flights and went for 10 days. Shaz, tell us a bit about your place out there, where it is, and yeah, fill us in on the details.
So what happened was this trip actually happened when you have a conversation and you don't think it's going to happen, but you have it anyway. Anyway, this thing happened. All the stars lined up. And you guys joined me in Pakistan in November, and I was probably more excited than you guys when you were coming, because we were like texting each other as you landed in Qatar, and then as you were about to land in Islamabad, you messaged me, and then we're continuously messaging each other saying you're out, and next thing you know, in the middle of winter, it is about 3 degrees. And this 6'5" white bloke comes out with shorts on. And that was the start of your trip, really. And we had a big hug, didn't we, as you both arrived. And it was something like in the early hours, wasn't it, really? It was, what time did you land? I can't remember. Was it 7 o'clock or 3 o'clock or something like that in the morning?
Can't remember, but I was a bit disappointed, Shaz, that you didn't have the flowers to greet us at the airport with Pakistani style, mate. Like, we didn't get much. We got a hug, but we didn't get the whole. What's it called when they put it around your neck?
The flowery heart, we'll call it, don't we? No,
Yeah.
you don't do that. That's probably mainly an Indian thing. But no, they do it in Pakistan. But it was too early to do that. It was too early to do that. I didn't get any sleep either because I was too excited.
Like Christmas morning.
I was. And then when we got to the airport, my nephew came with me as well. And the next thing you know, you came out first, Phil, didn't you?
Yeah.
With your shorts on, and then Yas followed you because I think he got stopped something, didn't he, before he came out?
Yeah, he got stopped by security on the way out, and they ushered me past, didn't they, straight out the door. But they just realised who were.
And then you arrived, and then we ended up going at a truck stop. We went for some food. It was for some breakfast, some chai, and we had some paratha. And then we had some Jannah as well. So that was mouth watering. I was just thinking about it. It's Ramadan as well. We shouldn't say that.
Where were we?
Well, it was in Attock that you came to in northern Pakistan, which is about an hour and 20 minutes away from Islamabad.
Yeah. Just before we get into that, I think our last episode was before we went to Pakistan, wasn't it?
It was.
But it's been at least, 6 months since we last recorded one? Yeah. And I've had quite a few people asking to say, guys, what's going on? When's the next episode coming out? So on that note, it is good to be back. But I have to say the highlight of my year last year was that trip to Pakistan. And
well, let's go into the highlights of the trip in a moment anyway. So we arrived, you guys went to bed and then got up, and the first day, what did we do? Arrived in Pakistan, the first thing we did was we went for a round of golf, didn't we?
Did I win?
And No, you didn't win that. You two played very badly, and you lost so many balls because obviously you didn't have any of your gear with you either. You didn't have your clubs or your balls or anything. So we had to get them from
Not
a
a
club.
caddy though.
We had proper caddies, didn't we, as well? And they were shocked at how many balls we lost. By the way, you two were terrible.
I can't remember it like that. I think we won.
I can't remember it like that either. Not my memory of
That's
it,
not
mate.
my recollection either.
No,
No.
so right, boys. So, question for you. I'll start with Phil first. Then, what were your first impressions when you landed and came out at the airport, and then your real day when it started was when you woke up in the morning, and then your real day properly started then, didn't it? So, talk me through, both of you, I know you went to Doha beforehand as well, but let's talk about Pakistan. When you came out of the airport, or even indeed your first impressions at the airport, and then when you came out, and then in the morning when you got up as well.
Well, I don't think I had any preconceived ideas really of what it'd be like. But it was busy, it was bustling. It always seemed to be like that, no matter what the time of day was. Everything always seemed to be open. I was fairly shocked. I think when you just mentioned then about we stopped for a chai on the way back, I think that was about 5:30, 6 a.m. So we must have landed fairly early on.
Yeah, it must have been. Yeah.
And again, when you pull up at that particular place where we were, I wouldn't have said it was on a particularly busy road. It wasn't like being on the M6, was it? And yet, still, there was a bit of activity. There was a bit of vibe. There was a lot of people still working there.
Yeah.
The weather was great. That was another thing. We obviously got to your house, which is a magnificent place, isn't it? Really, it's a really nice pad that you've got out there. And yeah, the sun was coming up, and it was getting warmer. And yeah, I think both of us. I think I can speak for both of us in this. We were both really excited to be there. And like you say, we got up and went golfing that first day, and yeah, that was shorts and t-shirt weather. I remember walking down one of the fairways and probably the second or third hole, and we were pulling oranges off trees.
That's it. Yes.
There were fruit trees all over the place, and in the morning, that morning you have a lemon tree in your front garden, I believe, if I recall.
Yeah.
And I remember pulling a lemon out of there, piercing it with my thumb, and squeezing the lemon juice into my bottle of water for the day. So,
well, you did that a few times.
Yeah, that became sort of a bit of a morning ritual. But yeah, the place itself, obviously where we stayed, was beautiful. Your pad, and obviously the golf course was. I've never been on a bad golf course, I don't think. And obviously the Pakistan one is right up there due to the weather and the fruit trees and me winning. That's always a bonus.
He did not win.
He didn't win. He didn't win.
And then obviously the city itself as well, which is just a hive of activity. There's just always something going on. I don't think I've ever been somewhere where there's always been something I wanted to watch. You can get really tied up in there's just things going on everywhere that aren't normal. Yeah. The cars and the bikes. There's just bikes everywhere, and there's people walking all the time, and it's just a busy. It was a busy place to be, and yet when we were near your house, which is a little bit out the centre, isn't it? It was quite calm and quiet. And yeah, that was probably my first impressions. There was just something that I wanted to look at all the time. I remember driving home and your eyes are just darting about, waiting for the next thing that you want to see. I don't know. Yasir probably. Yasir's might have been a bit different because I think your visits have been probably a bit broader than mine have over the years.
Thing is with Yas though, Yas has actually been to India as well. Okay, so Yas is probably a little bit more familiar with quite a bit of the stuff that was going on in Pakistan, because there's awful lot of similarities there as well. But go on, Yas, what was your first impressions? And I want you to compare some of your first impressions with India as well.
I was going to, because that's when Phil was going on. I was thinking it was his first time ever experiencing, the Far East in terms of that kind of culture, that kind of a hive of activity. But I've been to India 3 times, so I could compare. First thing is obviously your gaff, and Phil was just saying, but I got the better bedroom and with ensuite. Phil got relegated a little bit. So I was buzzing at the fact I'd got this massive bedroom to myself with the ensuite. hot shower and everything. And I was just like, wow, not what I expected. Because last time I went to India was a bucket and no job. Do you know what I mean? And proper ensuite shower and everything. So I was like, wow, right outside the mosque window, literally facing the mosque. First morning, waking up with the Fajr Azan. It was surreal and really, really, really kind of appreciated the fact that we had home there. Do you know what I mean? And it was, I think, throughout the trip, wherever we went, and we'll come on to that, the fact that we went back home to your place, honestly, it was the best feeling ever. Rather than going in hotels and stuff like that. So from that perspective, you just want to say, mate, I know we'll probably say it at some point, but your hospitality and what your wife Naz and everyone there, Kari Sab as well, obviously, we'll come on to him, but the hospitality from perspective was honestly amazing. But comparing it to India, I'm going to be honest with you, every time I've been to India, I've hated it. Never liked it. Never wanted to go back. Never really felt like it was a place I wanted to be. Didn't enjoy Mumbai. Didn't enjoy the villages at all. Just never really, really got into kind of wanting to go India ever. And I've not been for about 6 years, I think 7 years, and there's a reason for that. So I was a bit apprehensive when it came to Pakistan, but I can tell you now, if you could offer me a ticket to go next week, I'll be back there next week because absolutely loved it. And I think the biggest difference for me personally between India and Pakistan I felt the people were just amazing, so hospitable. Everywhere we went, Hunza Valley will come on to that being the pick of it, but the people themselves in Pakistan throughout wherever we went, just amazing hospitality. And I think the second thing was the cleanliness of the place. I don't think we went anywhere, even when we went to Lahore, the busy, equivalent to Mumbai, I found it so clean. Even though I didn't contribute to that myself on the main road on one occasion.
No, you didn't, did you?
But yeah, I felt honestly, if we had the opportunity, I'd go every year and really, really loved it. The first day going out golfing, it was like we were on Baxenden golf course, but we had orange, to pick off the trees. We had caddies literally at our beck and call.
Yeah.
I think just saying, "Can I have a 7-iron?" and then him cleaning it for you and giving it to you was just like, wow, we're like, princes here. And we got treated like that. We got treated like royalty throughout. So loved it.
Zada.
Well, no, we'll come on to that in a minute. But when you mentioned how clean Lahore was, Lahore itself, the streets and whatever, and the roads were clean, but the smog was pretty bad.
Yeah.
And then I went to Lahore again after you guys left, and it was even worse. And you could actually taste it as well. But that can't be helped. We then made lots of little videos here and there. I think some of our viewers have probably seen them as well. Phil has been the Morning Myrtle or the Victor Meldrew of the trip. And in fact, some people even compared it to the Four Lions as well, didn't they? They said, oh, it's got Four Lions vibes about this, which it did. And it was also, for me, it was also surreal to hear a proper, and I know we speak it as well, but a proper Lancashire accent in Pakistan as well. So you're surrounded by Pakistan, and then you've got this white guy with a proper Lancashire accent there, and it just didn't quite look right. But anyway, it was brilliant. So we went to the village, we went to Lahore, we went to Hunza Valley. Lahore we just brushed on anyway. I don't know if anybody wanted, Phil even wants to. In fact, you probably will, because you met some really good friends, didn't you, at the traffic lights in Lahore? I've just realised now. We can't miss that bit.
They weren't at my window.
So,
got to fill us in
what
on
happened?
Yes.
So what happened was, a lot of the Pakistani larger cities have got what we call kusre, Kusre are basically transgender guys who or girls who basically beg on the streets. And these particular guys were at the traffic lights and they were knocking on the window. And I was sat in the front. They weren't interested in me. We had a relative that was driving, and these two good-looking guys were sat at the back. So Yas and Phil, I'll let you take over the story after that. Then when they copped their eyes on you guys.
I think I got called Molana, didn't I?
You did.
Molvi, you got called Molvi.
Molvi, yeah. So I was all right. I think it was Phil they were after, if I'm honest with you. But
You know full well that that's not true.
Yeah, I don't know about that, mate.
It was when you were winding your window down that we got worried.
I think just before that, though, Shaz, as soon as we entered Lahore, what a mad city!
Oh, crazy!
Do you remember? It's like there was that motorbike where the woman was just carrying like a newborn on the back, like just And I think as soon as we entered Lahore, I think you told us nothing prepares you for Lahore, and we were like, wow. And this, the roads, it was just chaos. We had I can say this, but me and Phil, when we went to the airport, before we even met you, we went to the toilets to queue, and me and him, I think, were queuing orderly, and these guys are just like pushing in and just going into the cubicles. And I think we said it then that I think in Pakistan it's no fucks given, and it literally was like that throughout the trip, where if they, whether it's the traffic, whether it's, whatever it is, it has its own rules, it has its own way of life, it has its own, it's like it just works for them.
It just works, correct.
Honestly, but Lahore was just mad. The places you took us to, I think, we went to the border.
Oh, yeah.
Wagah border.
Wagah border. The blokes there, they made me and Phil look short. The size of them,
huge.
Yeah. And I was an Indian on the India border, and I think you both said you'd like to chuck me over, but being on that close and seeing the Indian flag, and it was quite strange for me because I saw the Indian flag and I saw the Pakistan flag obviously right next to it, but I felt more of an affinity to the Pakistan flag, and it was a strange experience. But that show itself, really, really good. Had your uncle with you holding your hand. We saw hand holding a lot of it.
That was my cousin holding my hand. Yeah.
Cousin, yeah. So
listen, listen. You listen. You white and an English Indian guy, don't really look too much into this, because hand holding is a show of affection. Okay, don't you guys get your filthy minds involved with this and take it to a whole different area, because it's not like that. He's my cousin, right? I haven't seen him for ages, and he wanted to hold my hand every time I walk down the street.
We know we never took that anywhere. It was the fact that when we mentioned it to you as we were walking behind you, your face said it all. It was nothing to do with anything where we'd gone. It was your guilty looking face when you turned around and you saw my camera pointing at you that you knew. But I think that was probably one of the most like pinch me moments of the trip, is the fact that we've talked about that on this podcast. I think you went, didn't you, Shaz, to the Wagah Border show? And we did a podcast on it, or we did a segment of one of the podcast shows on it.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah. And then to be sat there and like Yasir said, you're looking up at these two huge flags, one Indian, one Pakistan, and you're like just thinking, we've talked about this. I never actually thought that we'd get here, and that was a bit of a like pinch me moment that we are here. The other one, I think, is walking around the village.
Yes.
Yes. But I was going to actually say before that, we missed something before we went to Lahore, which for me, and I think Phil agrees on this, was actually our highlight of the whole trip. Was you took us after golf, you took us to the orphanage.
Oh, yeah. That's right.
On the first day, you took us on the very first day, didn't you?
Yeah.
And there, honestly, that for us made the trip itself. We could have just gone to that orphanage every single day. I was going to say something, but it might not sound appropriate, but play cricket and other sports with the people in the orphanage, and it was, honestly, it humbled us more than anything else.
Yeah,
seeing where those kids were, kind of their situations, and the fact that the guy told us where people would just drop their kids off and expect the orphanage to look after them. And these boys were literally given no chance in life, but then this orphanage provided them with that opportunity to study, to get a degree, to become, doctors and everything else. So even before we got to Lahore, I think just that first day going to that orphanage was, for me, I've never been to an orphanage like that. It really, really humbled you as a person, and it made you really feel so privileged, so privileged in what we have here in this country and everything we're given.
I think, and we are very lucky living in a country like this where people are not as fortunate as others in this country. But if you want to see real poverty, and I mean poverty as in people can't afford to feed themselves, can't afford to dress themselves, you need to go to a country like Pakistan and India even as well. And that's what you call real poverty. And especially then, coupled poverty down with having treatment of any kind. If you are unfortunate enough to be ill, well, you simply die of the most trivialist of all illnesses, and it's purely because you can't afford to get treated, and that's what these guys live in. And I've been to some of the homes that these kids' families live in as well, and it's humbling and it's heartbreaking as well. And what these orphanages do is they provide them with a roof over their heads, clean clothes, safety and security, food in the belly, and an education, which then can be a springboard into a decent career for some of these guys. And without these sort of places, these kids have got absolutely no chance, no chance whatsoever. So
it was just on your doorstep as well, wasn't it?
yeah,
literally on the corner from your house.
Yeah.
And it just, don't take this the wrong way at all, but there we are living in luxury in your house. And then we go around the corner and we find an orphanage where you've got all these kids who literally have been given this opportunity to try and live as normal a life as they possibly can. So from our perspective, honestly, if you just did that for us, that on the trip, it would have made the trip for us. We had B-Tech Ben Stokes here playing cricket with them. They thought he was some sort of superstar, but his skills with a cricket bat didn't really. So
some people called him Ben Stokes, some people called him Freddie Flintoff, but it was neither because he was rubbish.
Hang on a minute. Right, stop you both again. Firstly, I won the badminton game, and secondly, I stayed in for more balls than you did playing cricket.
Did you hit any of them?
A couple. It's not about cricket's a game of it's like a game of chess, isn't it? It's about tactics, yeah. It's not just trying to wallop them all.
The thing is, he hit less balls, but more balls hit him.
But it's about scoring runs, mate. If you miss every ball, you're not scoring any, are you? Anyway,
my tactic was to tire out the bowlers. That's all.
You didn't though, because you couldn't even see the balls because those lads were quick.
Yeah, they were
really quick.
They loved it. But yeah, so after the orphanage, we got to Lahore, and obviously we went to Badshahi Mosque.
Oh yes,
Lahore
we went to that.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was that restaurant overlooking Badshahi Mosque?
Haveli. That was Haveli. That was up on the rooftop overlooking Badshahi Masjid. It's a bit of a tourist thing, is that, which if you go to Lahore, you have to do that anyway. The food is average, but the views are amazing, and that's basically why people go there.
And the thing that surprised me the most was how upmarket Lahore was in terms of the type of people living there.
Absolutely, yeah.
Businessmen, businesswomen. It was almost like you were in London.
Yeah, it's a pretty cosmopolitan city. Is that? It's millions and millions of people live there, and it's such a diverse. Not just Lahore, Pakistan itself. It's such a diverse country. You've got the upper echelons of the country as well, and then you've got people that are putting their kids in orphanages as well.
Yeah. But on the way to Lahore, we did something, didn't we? You remember? We booked a trip to a place.
So yeah, so again, the video of that discussion is on TikTok as well, and that's where Phil is not too happy because Yasir booked a trip to Hunza Valley, and that day, that particular day, it was -9 degrees, and we were in 23, 24 degrees on the motorway. Phil happened to be driving because he wanted to drive in Pakistan, but he didn't want to drive in the city. The motorway was all right, but the city was something that I think he stayed away from driving as well.
See, that's also not strictly true. I did want to drive in the city. However, once I'd seen driving in the city, there was not a chance you were getting me in the driver's seat of a car.
Yeah, that's true.
Not a chance.
So anyway, so going back to the conversation. So while we were driving there, it was about 5.5 hour drive, and Yas and my nephew were in the back seat, and they booked our trip to Hunza Valley. So that was a bit of an adventure. Well, it was a lot of an adventure, wasn't it, really? Because we were supposed to fly there and fly back, weren't we?
12-hour. No, sorry. It was a 1.5 hour, wasn't it?
No, it was a 1 hour flight.
It's an hour flight.
Straight hour.
But if you wanted to drive, I think it was a 14-hour drive.
Yep.
So we decided we wanted to fly. We didn't want to drive, did we?
Nope.
No, we didn't fancy that one. So we decided the PIA was the way, and we booked the hotels, Rumi Dastan Hotel.
Nice hotel overlooking the mountains, beautiful view.
It was lovely.
Beautiful
lovely.
views.
Absolutely lovely.
So that was for the last 2-3 days of our trip, wasn't it? So we thought we'll plan ahead, we'll book Hunza Valley. And I think it was after we just booked the flights and booked the hotel that we checked the weather forecast. And I think -9 was the high, Shaz. I think the lowest was like -16 or 18 or something.
Well, also this forecast of was it 12 inches of snow or something like that?
Oh yeah.
Over a few days.
And
so I wasn't particularly happy with you because I'd only brought shorts.
Oh yes, yeah. So you'd only packed shorts, hadn't you?
So that's why I know that's on your question list, Shaz. Why I had some questionable trousers at the Wagga Border show.
No. Listen, we'll go on to that later on.
Oh, okay.
We'll go on to that later on. No, you can't get yourself out of this easy. We'll get into that question later on. Anyway, so
trying to sweep it to the side.
Shaz, can I just say quickly? I took some abuse that trip, didn't I?
Yeah. What was your nickname that you got christened with?
What was
Every other sentence was dickhead. Phil, all he said was that dickhead. Oh, Mr. Dickhead over there. So unless there's another name that you remember, Yas, but I think that's the name that I kept hearing constantly.
I think after we tell everyone what happened at Hunza Valley, I think I deserved it. But
when someone constantly does dickhead things, that's what they get. And unfortunately, he constantly kept doing dickhead things.
The thing is, like, we booked that trip, and I remember one thing, Naz, your wife, Shaz, every time we went somewhere, we left the house, and I think she'd text you, wouldn't she, fi amanillah, I leave you in the protection of Allah. And I found that so nice and so, and Kari Sab, the guy who obviously sees us off in terms of looking after the property itself, would make a little dua for us. But then we booked this trip. I think you text Naz to say we booked a trip to Hunza Valley and it's forecasted snow, and she's like, cancel it. And then we went, no, we're all right, we'll go with it, won't we? Even though Phil gave me some abuse. So we booked that, and then we saw Lahore. Got food poisoning in Lahore.
You did.
You
That's
did.
right. From that fried fish, I think it was.
I think fish. I think fish. I think Phil got a little bit of it. We won't go into the details of it, but I think we were both in the hotel toilets.
Quite a bit.
Experiencing similar symptoms. But I think mine got worse because I chucked my guts out in the middle of Lahore on the busiest road.
Yeah, you did. So we had to stop, didn't we, in the middle of the road. You then got up in the central reservation and you threw up. And we were there, parked at an angle, right, with millions of cars and rickshaws and motorbikes going all around us. And there's there's Yas throwing his guts up.
And not one of you even offered me water or anything else at all besides your
But we
cousin.
didn't get out. Ali got out.
We sent Ali out to you. What do you want?
On the trip as well. Ali got out because he was on the driver's side. He was on the safe side. I was on the passenger side. There's no way I was getting out that side. I tell you, there's motorcycles and rickshaws and everything whistling by you, about 6 inches away from your door.
And I was on the same side as Shaz. However, if I'd have been on the other side, I still wouldn't have got out because there was no way I was dealing with you chucking up your shoulder. I'd have still got sent Ali out to you.
So yeah, so Lahore was eventful. Didn't enjoy the 5-hour trip back after chucking my guts up, but it was good. And like I said before, the moment we got to your house, it was like we're home, and it was such a nice feeling to be able to come back to that every time. And after that, what did we do after that?
Just to recap a little bit. So you mentioned Gadi Saab. He was our security guard that lives there. And he sort of opened the gate for us and everything. And every time I went somewhere, he was doing dua for us, which is like a prayer, to wish us well and that we reach our destination safely and got back safely as well. So I think we're gonna get on to a part 2 of this video as well, because
I think we're gonna have to. But I think before we do leave this one, we can sort of say how Yas managed to live up to his name and Mr. Dickhead. What happened in Hunza? But let's not go into details about the trip back. I think there's a lot of detail we still do need to go into. So there's definitely a part 2 coming up for this trip. But what happened?
What a beautiful place, by the way. What a beautiful place.
Oh, 100%. And I tell you what, now in hindsight, yes, I'm so glad we went. Even for what happened on the way home, I'm so glad we went.
Have you heard this? Have you heard this?
And for some of those insults, I will apologise. Because it was an unreal place to be, an unreal place to visit. People will never see that in their lifetime. And flying over that on the way in, over the Himalayas, was just incredible. It's that incredible that the iPhone camera that I did take a video of flying over does it no justice.
Yeah.
What a beautiful
snow-capped mountains constantly going on for hundreds, if not thousands of miles.
No matter where you looked while you were there was a snow-capped mountain and it was beautiful. However, we woke up on day 1. So we got there, we slept, we ate, we slept, we woke up. Our tour guide came to pick us up. We're driving around some of the Abbas by. We're driving around some of the spots, and you happened to ask a question. And we found out some deathly information.
Abbas, what a legend. We got up in the morning, excited for the day ahead, looking forward to seeing some of the sights. We're off to the first site, which is the fastest moving glacier in the world. And Abbas met us at the airport at Gilgit. What a beautiful airport. And
tiny, what beautiful.
Yeah, you can't describe it. He kind of took, we met, he was the first person we met. He said, I'll take you around everywhere. Loveliest man I've ever met. And the first day he took us out to see the fastest moving glacier in the world, and we had a full packed itinerary. And I asked the question, I said, Abbas Bhai, whilst you're not by the way, my Urdu was pretty spot on.
I was very impressed.
Yeah, so
very impressed.
I said to him, Abbas Bhai, and Phil didn't hear this because I was asking him Urdu, so he hadn't caught on what was going on yet. But I said, whilst you're not at the airport, who's there for you? And he said, there's always someone else, but I don't need someone right now because all flights have been cancelled for the next 2 days. And we were like, you what? And by the way, we were in Hunza on Monday morning, and our flight back to the UK was on Thursday morning. And our flight was supposed to be back from Hunza on the Wednesday. So we landed in the Wednesday morning at Islamabad. So if we missed that flight, we were missing our flight to the UK. So he tells us that all the flights have been cancelled because PIA hadn't paid their fuel bills. And right. I think Phil commented something, didn't you, Phil? Not like Asians not to pay their bills. So PIA hadn't paid their fuel bills, and because of that, all flights had been cancelled. So I think we looked at every single option there was, including this luxury bus that you found, Faisal Tours or something,
Yeah.
Faisal or
Special
something.
Movers, it was called.
Yeah, so we tried looking at every single available option to us, but the only one we ended up with was a 14-hour drive through the mountains in Pakistan at night with a driver who was hell bent on wanting to kill us,
That's
or
right.
and himself had, like Phil said, I think he shot himself more than once. Um, but
We'll
it
go into
made,
that. We'll go into the details of that in part 2, actually, because I don't
didn't
think
it
few minutes is
didn't
gonna
it make
do it
didn't it
justice.
make the whole trip so special though?
It did.
In
Sharing the car
fairness,
journey.
and again, at the time, if you'd have asked me, Yasir, I think for those full 14 hours, if something had have happened to you, I would have danced for joy. I would have happily seen you get hurt and not do anything about it. In fact, if something and someone had tried to mug you, I'd have helped them for those 14 hours. However, looking back, it was possibly part of the trip that has, or something that had happened on that trip that has like galvanized it really, because it was like a bit of an adventure, wasn't it? When you look back,
It was.
yeah. For the 14 hours that I was sat in the front seat of that car with my knuckles that were white, grabbing onto that seat, thinking I'd made a really good choice getting in the front seat, and realizing within about 30 seconds it was the worst seat I could have been in for the next 14 hours. Yeah, I could have happily killed you myself.
The worst thing was, and I think I said this to you just at the start of the journey, that there was a local lad from Blackburn, lovely, lovely guy, but he passed away in a car accident in Pakistan about 2 months before we went. So we had that thought whilst this driver's driving at 80 miles an hour on the mountainous road where we can't see a thing, and he's got massive buses coming towards him, and he's just like, yeah, it's a bus, so what? And lorries and everything. So yeah, it made the trip. I think we've only covered a little bit, so there's so much more to talk about, including Jumma at the local village and everything else.
Right.
So there's so much to talk about, but what an experience. And I'm really, really looking forward to getting a bit more into Phil's experience of it, because including the, Pakistani toilets and everything else, I think there's so much to kind of get from it in terms of the clothes shop we went to and everything else. So I'm looking forward to talking a bit more about it in more detail as well.
So going back, just before we finish, in the next part, Phil will be telling us about his experiences inside or in the Pakistani bathrooms where they have the normal hole in the floor toilets, and then we actually had some shalwar kameez made for him as well, which he loved and he put on. So we can talk about the Nara experience or the lack of the Nara. Because then we ended up getting an elastic put in his shalwar, because you can't expect a Gora to maneuver himself around a Nara. And also the word Gora as well, because we sometimes we called Phil the Gora anyway, but as part of another conversation, I used to drop the word Gora in anyway, and Phil was like, every time I mentioned the word, his ears perked up and he looked round at me because he knew I was talking about him. And he had a little dance as well, did Phil? But we'll talk about all that in part 2.
Yeah, I think we've given a great overview there of the trip so far. But yeah, there's a lot of detail and a lot of things that have happened that I think will probably need their own episode. I was always skeptical that we were going to get it all into one 38-40 minute slot, but unfortunately we've not done. So that gives us a good time to wish everybody Ramadan Mubarak, because it's the holy month at the moment, and to thank you, Shaz, and you, Yasir, for coming on and joining me again today, and for everybody to tune in next time to listen to Pakistan Part 2. See you later.
See you later, everyone.
See you later.